Imagine spending your entire childhood convinced you wouldn't live long enough to see 30, and then waking up at nearly 88, feeling stronger, happier, and more whole than ever. That's the emotional journey Jane Fonda revealed in a powerful new conversation with Michelle Obama. Today, we're diving deep into Jane's raw, honest reflections about youth, trauma, healing, aging, and what it truly means to live without regrets. From the heartbreaking loss she endured at 12 to the surprising peace she's found today, Jane's story is one of resilience that hits harder than ever. So let's unravel the intimate truths she shared and why she says she's astonished to still be here and living better than she ever imagined. When Jane Fonda sat down with Michelle Obama for the latest episode of The Look, she didn't hold back. She spoke with a kind of clarity that only comes from decades of survival and growth. Jane admitted she always believed her life would end early, long before fame, awards, activism, and reinvention. She said, "I didn't think I'd live past 30. I was sure I was going to die." And she didn't say it dramatically. She said it like someone who once lived with that belief every day. It wasn't fame or pressure that scared her. It was loneliness, confusion, and the shadow of her mother's death, something that shaped her in ways she's still unpacking. Jane's mother died by suicide when Jane was just 12, a loss she describes as devastating, confusing, and profoundly formative. Her youth, she explained, was not particularly happy. She didn't see herself as someone who would grow into an old woman with clarity and purpose. She thought drugs, pain, and isolation would end things first. Yet sitting across from Michelle Obama decades later, she said something astonishing. "I feel more centered, more whole, more complete now than I ever have." And there's something so powerful about hearing that from someone who once felt broken at the core. It reminds us how much healing can happen over a lifetime. Slowly, painfully, quietly. Jane reflected on reaching 60, a birthday that made her confront something she had avoided most of her life, the fear of dying with regrets. She wasn't afraid of aging. She wasn't afraid of death itself. What terrified her was the possibility of reaching the end with unresolved pain, unspoken words, or relationships left in pieces. She remembered watching her father, the legendary Henry Fonda, die with regrets he carried alone. That moment carved something in her. An understanding that if she wanted peace in her final years, she had to live intentionally, not passively. She had to choose honesty, connection, forgiveness, even when those things hurt. One of the most emotional stories Jane shared was about her father's final days. She described sitting with him, finally able to say words that had lived inside her for decades, that she loved him, that she forgave him, and that she hoped he forgave her too. Henry Fonda didn't reply. He didn't give a long speech or a final piece of wisdom. Instead, he wept, openly, vulnerably, for the first time in her life. That moment, Jane says, changed her. It taught her that even unsteady relationships can find truth at the end, but only if someone is brave enough to say the first real thing. That experience became a compass for her next 30 years. Jane started living with intention, choosing people who loved her, choosing honesty, even when it was uncomfortable, choosing to forgive others and herself. She said forgiveness became the foundation of her life, not because it erases the past, but because it frees the future. She's spent decades dismantling old shame, letting go of heavy memories, and rebuilding herself piece by piece. And as she looked back with Michelle Obama, she said something that stuck. "I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of dying with regrets." That single fear has shaped the entire second half of her life. Jane also talked about aging in a way that feels refreshing, almost rebellious. She said she's never feared getting older. In fact, she believes old age can be fantastic if you live it intentionally, not by clinging to youth, but by embracing wisdom, by knowing who you are and who you're not. Jane joked about how women in the 50s and 60s were told to exercise by doing tiny, polite movements, until she came along with her iconic workout tapes and changed everything. But behind the humor was something deeper. A woman who has lived every chapter openly, reinvented herself constantly, and refused to let age define her boundaries. And now, nearing 88, Jane describes herself as truly happy. Happy in a way she couldn't have imagined in her 20s or 30s. She's single, centered, and surrounded by people she chooses and who choose her. She's learned to value presence over perfection, relationships over resentment, and most importantly, she's learned to be gentle with herself. The girl who once believed she'd die young has become a woman who savors every year she gets. There's something incredibly powerful about a survivor saying, "I'm better now. I wouldn't go back for anything." Her conversation with Michelle Obama felt like two women, two icons, trading wisdom, reminding each other and all of us that aging isn't something to fear, it's something to understand, to embrace, to shape with intention. Michelle highlighted Jane's incredible journey, from heartbreak to activism, to becoming a symbol of strength. And Jane, in turn, reminded us that healing doesn't have an expiration date. You can find peace at 40, 60, 88, whenever you're ready to choose it. Her story encourages us to ask the hard questions now, so we don't face them too late. So as we wrap up this story, think about Jane's words. Live without regrets. Say the difficult things while you have the chance. Forgive the people who matter. Forgive yourself most of all. Jane Fonda didn't think she'd live past 30, yet here she is, almost 88, thriving, reflective, and proving that the final act of life can be the most beautiful. If her journey teaches us anything, it's that it's never too late to change, to heal, or to begin living with intention. And maybe that's why her story resonates so deeply, because it reminds us that no matter what we've survived, the ending is still ours to shape.